Hey everyone, in today's session, we are going to cover a new functionality released by the Fusion team, and that is nothing but retrigger scenario functionality. Okay, so basically, using this retrigger functionality, you can retrigger the scenario using a previous transaction, right? So you don't have to manually go ahead and retrigger the webhook to retrigger the scenario. You can just click on retrigger and that will retrigger the scenario using a previous input or a previous transaction, right? That's really useful whenever we want to troubleshoot a scenario. For example, if the scenario fails and if you want to retrigger the same scenario using a previous input, you can just click on retrigger and that will retrigger the scenario using a previous input. And let's say we have another use case. Let's say you want to make some changes to a scenario, right? And you want to retrigger a previous transaction, you can use this method to retrigger a previous transaction, and you can see whether the scenario is working fine or not using the latest blueprint, right? So that's another way. And whenever you are developing a scenario and if you want to quickly test the scenario, you can just click on retrigger and you can easily test your scenario changes, right? So these are some of the use cases that we have, right? um, so yeah, why is this useful? Faster development. It will help you to develop your scenarios in a much faster pace. Easier troubleshooting, as I mentioned, you can easily troubleshoot your scenario failures by clicking on retrigger and checking whether the scenario is working fine or not, or where exactly the scenario is failing. Replay or resubmit the failed transaction. Suppose your scenario failed to process the transaction, so you can retrigger or resubmit the transaction again by clicking on a button. You don't have to go through the manual process of retriggering the webhook to retrigger the scenario, right? So you don't have to do that anymore, right? So these are some of the use cases, and I'm really excited to try out this new feature. So let's get started. So we are in Fusion now. Let's try to understand the scenario first of all. So this scenario has a webhook here and is listening for project status changes equal to current. Whenever the project status changes to current, this scenario picks it up. Okay, and then it actually gets the program name. Okay, so in this module, as you can see, it gets the program name using the program ID, right? And then it updates the name of the project using a specific naming convention. So you can see that we are using program name hyphen project name. So this is the naming convention that we are using here. So very simple scenario. Whenever the project changes from project status changes from planning to current, this scenario picks up the event and then it updates the naming convention. Okay, so let's try to run this. Click on run once. Okay, now you can see we have this new option coming up, these new options coming up, right? Wait for an external webhook call. So this is the old method of triggering the scenario using an external webhook call, right? So let's try to test out the old way first, and then we'll use the other methods as well, right? So how do we use to test it? Using an external webhook call, right? So let's try to run it. Okay, now let's try to retrigger the webhook. How do you do that? We need to change the status. So this is a project that we have. So let's try to change the status from planning to current. Okay, that's when the scenario will be triggered. Okay, from planning to current. Let's change it. Okay, now you can see that the scenario will be triggered shortly, right? So this is the old way of doing it. We have to manually re-trigger the webhook, right? This is the old way of doing it. Now if you see the, let's go and check the execution history. You can just click on it and you can see that it immediately brings up the execution history. So this is another update that they have done. You can see that it immediately gives the execution history. Usually there used to be a delay in giving you the execution history, but now we don't have the delay anymore. The execution history is coming up immediately. The summary is coming up immediately. That's another functionality that they release, and I'm really, really happy about this functionality as well. So now, so you can see that in the execution, you have an option to re-trigger the scenario, right? So if you click on re-trigger, let's see what happens here. Okay, it will re-trigger the scenario using that particular input. Okay, and you can see that it is already updated here. And here you can see the program name, the project name is already updated. So let's try to refresh it. So let's try to refresh this the project. and you should see that the project name is already updated. So what is the project name? So let's try to control A. It's actually annual clearing sale, retrigger. Okay, let's try to run it once again. Let's try to say test weapon. Okay, let's try to click on planning here. Let's try to retrigger again. Okay, using the old method first of all. So let's try to run once, and then let's say wait for an external webhook call. So this is the old way. Let's try to do it once again. So let's move it to current. Okay, so then this particular scenario will be triggered, right? And this is the old method, and you can see that it's actually updating the project name. Now if you refresh it, you can it should give you the appropriate naming convention, right? So this is the program name followed by the project name. So it's working fine now. Okay, now let's try to make some changes to the scenario. So let's try to make some changes to this scenario. So let's say we added one more variable here in the naming convention. So let's add a reference ID or something. So let's say ID reference number. So let's add a reference number at the end of the naming convention. Okay, now in the old method we had to go ahead and retrigger this from this project, right? And then it will retrigger the webhook, right? We don't have to do that anymore. We can just click on retrigger functionality here. Just click on retrigger, and then it will retrigger the scenario using the previous input here, and you can see that it's actually updated. Let's try to refresh this project here, and you should be able to see the updated naming convention here. You can see that it has updated the reference number at the end, right? So it's very easy to retrigger the scenario using the retrigger option functionality, right? Retrigger button functionality here. And you can also retrigger from here. So if you click on run once, okay, you can just click on use a previous execution input, and let's say I can use the latest 191 as the latest one that I retrigger. So I can use this and I can run this. So I can use this method as well, right? It all depends on you on how you want to handle this. You can either use it from this run once functionality, or you can also directly click on retrigger functionality from this particular execution history, right? So now let's see, there is another option that we saw. Let's try to run once. You can see that we have something called provide input manually. So this is very interesting. So let's try to add an input manually. So let's go here. Let's try to copy the previous input. Let's try to test out this particular functionality also. So let's just copy the whole thing, and let's try to give the input manually. Let's see whether it works or not. So let's click on provide input manually. Okay, let's try to control V here. Okay, okay, yeah. So let's make some slight changes. So let's search for a reference number. Let's make it to 5 here. So I just modify the payload. I just change the reference number to 5. Okay, so you can do any of these changes, and then let's click on run. Okay, so then it will use this input to retrigger the scenario, right? So let's try to run it. Let's see what happens. So it should have updated the latest reference number at the end of the naming convention here. Okay, so let's see this here. You can see that the reference number is updated here. So this is really useful whenever you want to retrigger your scenario by just clicking a button rather than going through the entire process of manually retriggering the webhook, right? I really like this functionality, and also the fact that the logs are available immediately. So just click on this, you can see that logs are immediately available for you to view, right? And this is really amazing. And the other thing is that this is only available for webhook based scenarios, that is webhook triggered scenarios. This is not available for scheduled trigger scenario. For example, here is a scheduled scenario that we have. So let's try to run this, and it ran successfully. And if I want to retrigger the scenario, I can't, because it's a schedule based scenario, right? I can't retrigger the scenario. But having said that, the logs are available immediately here. So this is also really, really uh, helpful, right? You don't have to wait endlessly to view the logs. The logs are available for you immediately. So I'm really excited about this new feature. I hope you're also excited to try out this new feature. I wish you all the best. Have a great day.